change is coming into play. Doors are closing, oh, every day. A signpost, a little of a plane. They're all men, oh, they're going insane.
Hello and welcome to Mystic Monologues and the signature question. The signature question, I think, where to start for you. I think anybody who gets involved in a process, the kind of process that human design operates, because it's something that you do within yourself, it is very, in that sense, a lone process. After all, it is for you to differentiate, to find your own authority, to be able to go through that process. That often it's very difficult for you to be able to see, like aging, like looking in that mirror, often very difficult to see the progress that you're making. It's what I enjoy about signposts, because signposts are something that, they allow you to have a way for your mind to measure. Oh, I do love giving the mind things to do that are productive rather than things to do that are negative. Everything about the success in human design, everything about it, is about the challenge of surrendering to not making decisions with your mind. The moment that you're operating according to your strategy and authority, your mind no longer has that same power to distort your process, but it doesn't mean that you throw it away. It's very important that the mind has something to do. It's very important that the mind is part of your process, that it begins to watch your process. At the deepest level of our work, in terms of, for example, rave psychology and working at the mental level, so much of that is about being an observer of your own process mentally. In other words, being the watcher, watching the mental process taking place. So signature is a signpost. Signature is a way in which you can measure. Interesting about the mind, the word Maya, the root in Maya, the Ma, this is from the Sanskrit word to measure. Everything about the nature of mind is measurement. This is the way in which we deal with the duality of the world. Everything that we do is about this, this or that, the up and down, the in or out, whatever the case may be. But mind is about measurement, better, worse, all of those goodies. And signpost is something very, very positive for mind to measure. And the only way that your mind is actually going to be able to watch is literally if you have given over that, decision-making authority to your strategy and authority, so that you do give your mind the opportunity to be able to see the signature. What signature? For those of you that are unfamiliar with the term, the signature is the other side of the not-self theme of any type. So for example, you take manifester. I'm a manifester. The not-self theme of a manifester is anger. But the signature is peace. It's two sides of the manifester coin, if you will. Every type has its not-self theme and its signature. In that sense, the theme of what it is when it's operating out of its mental authority, and the theme that emerges when it abandons its mental authority. One of the very few promises of human design is that if you follow your strategy and authority, it takes the weight off of you. It begins to reduce the burdens. And this is part of the process of eliminating, in that sense, the resistance. And basically, as you begin to operate correctly in your process, you begin to move away from the not-self theme and you move towards the signpost of the signature. And it is about watching this movement. You know, I've started with my example, so let's take a look at the manifester for a moment. What do we know about the manifester? You know, the manifestor comes into the world, and the moment that the manifestor comes into the world, it's already dealing with a dilemma because it has a closed-off aura. And there is suspicion in every aura that meets it. It is the manifestor child that is going to be controlled. It is the manifestor child who can have in their life a great deal of punishment because they appear to be uncontrollable. And the not-self theme of that manifestor child as it develops is a theme of anger. These are angry children. They can be angry at themselves. They can be angry at their parents. They can be angry with their friends. They can be angry with their life. They can be angry with everything. Everything. You know, if you have a manifestor child, teach them to be polite. Teach them to ask permission. It is a technique that will save them. And if you're a manifestor adult, your strategy is to inform before you act, to inform. Because the moment that you do that, you release yourself from the tension that is around you, and you open up the possibility of being able to move freely without resistance. And the moment that any manifestor is able to move freely without resistance is the moment that they begin to feel peace. Peace. It's a chemistry of what they are. And you see, there is a process. I'm 21 years. I'm 3 cycles in this process. It does not mean that anger does not exist in me as a manifestor. And the way in which I have measured with my signpost, my movement from anger to peace is about time. When I was not self, when I would get angry, I would hold on to that anger days, weeks, months, years. And peace was not something that I knew. And now what I see in my life is that my anger is momentary. It's momentary. And the peace dominates. And you can measure it as a manifestor. This range in your life between the anger and the peace. This range of measurement when the anger is something that stretches and stretches, or it's the peace that stretches and stretches, or anything in between, you're here to measure. You're here to see it. The generator. Wow, there are a lot of generators on the planet. I mean, there are more generators than anything else. 2/3 of humanity. Buzz, 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 buzz. Do love those generators. And what is the not-self theme of the generator? It is the not-self theme of our world. After all, it is frustration. We live in a deeply, deeply, deeply frustrated planet. Deeply frustrated. A frustrated planet that is a byproduct of generators initiating. The strategy is to respond. Excuse me. Going to be very, very difficult to find generators on this plane who are responding and not initiating, and the initiating generators are full of frustration. They're the great quitters. And they have enveloping auras that take everybody around them into their frustrated frequency. Oh, so simple. And yet it seems so difficult. You know, generators are blessed. All they have to do is respond. Everything is there for them. They allow life to come to them. They will see that everything is there for them. And it's only then that they can begin to measure their satisfaction, because that's the signature. This movement from frustration to satisfaction, this movement from the intensity of that frustration, and whether it's the whole process, is it your life, is it everything, Is it stuck in every aspect of you? When you begin to make decisions according to your strategy and authority, you're going to discover that what you enter into is going to bring you satisfaction, that you're going to begin to move away from the frustration. It doesn't mean it goes away completely any more than my anger's gone. But there is this movement, this progression. And as you move further and further towards not simply the experience of satisfaction, but the daily life sense of being satisfied, you can measure this, the signposts along the way as you go through this process. Not here to be frustrated. You're here to be deeply satisfied. Deeply satisfied. Satisfied with life. Satisfied with being itself. And you can measure it. Because if you look at yourself now as a generator, and you look to see the measurement within yourself between the frustration and the satisfaction, come on, go ahead, measure. See? This is your process. Moving away from the frustration, moving towards the satisfaction as yourself correctly. And you can measure it. This is the Maya game. This is the mechanics of the Maya. You can measure it. And projectors, this is their time. This is the time of the rising of the projector. Bitterness is their not-self theme. Just saying that word carries a kind of uncomfortableness to it. Bitterness is not a nice thing to experience. And worse than that for projectors, because they are here to be recognized, they are recognized in their bitterness. They're over 20% of humanity. That's 1.5 billion human beings with bitterness that is visible to everybody else. Ooh, think about that. Waiting for the invitation. Waiting for life to come to you. It's so funny about human beings. It's my story about the difference between the seven-centered and the nine-centered being. Seven-centered being always had to be afraid. It was always afraid. It was always afraid for its survival and therefore strategically always making sure that somehow it could deal with it. Seven-centered being. But we're not seven-centered. We're a nine-centered being. Our trip is not a trip about survival. That's not what we're supposed to be dealing with on a day-to-day basis in our lives. Not at all. It's not our movie. We're here through strategy and authority to be able to take full advantage of our uniqueness. The gift of the projector to master mechanics. The gift of the projector to be able to recognize and guide others through that. And that the signature for a projector is success. Success. Their success on their terms. That measurement from the bitterness on one side to the success on the other side. Take that measurement. Do you have to look for those little successes? How is anybody ever going to be right or feel right until they live right? Until you operate correctly? I mean, it's only then that you can even begin this journey of slowly moving across. This journey of moving away from the ugliness of the not-self theme. It's a not-self theme. When you're being bitter as a projector, you're being bitter as a not-self being based on the not-self of your particular design. You may have an open ego, and you're bitter about the fact that you're unworthy. You're bitter about the fact that you cannot prove yourself to others. You're bitter. But you see, if you operated correctly according to your strategy and authority, you would discover that those beings that come to you are already giving you their approval because they're coming to you and they want something from you. That until you wait for life to come to you, you do not get your life. This is the great vanity of the world. The great vanity of the world is that human beings think that they're in charge. That they're in charge of what happens. You're not in charge of anything. You're not. You know, the only way that you're going to live this life with any grace is if you stand back and allow it to unfold the way it's supposed to. You don't want to get stuck in the horrors of the not-self mind and its fears. Those seven-centered fears of survival that are still tormenting people today, all the time, now. In this time of financial disarray, in this time of Neptune in the 49, in this time of the last nodal cycle at the end of the cross of planning. Oof. There's just disarray. There is enormous bitterness and frustration and anger on this plane. 99% of humanity, you know. Anger, frustration, and bitterness on this plane. Any description of this planet, you cannot escape those things. And where is the world peace and the world satisfaction and the world success, you know? Where is it? It's a fantasy. But you don't have to go digging for the anger or the frustration or the bitterness. You can reach out and you can touch it anywhere. It's why you cannot change the world. It's why I cannot change the world. You can only change one person at a time. It's the basic thing about human design. It's one person at a time, and you never know who that person is. And only then, when you enter into that experiment, when you catalyze this process, when you break free of the hold of the homogenization and the distortion that mind has brought you, it's only then that you really begin to follow this movement, and you can follow it. And you can taste it, appreciate it, enjoy your process. It is a beautiful thing to get to your signature. It doesn't have to come all at once. It's bit by bit, day by day, breath by breath. It's a process. Until ultimately you are on the other side of that, away from the not-self. Living out the possibility of what you can be. And then there's the reflectors. They are truly an unusual lot. According to our global survey, the 1.4% of humanity are reflectors. Now, it sounds very small from a percentage point of view, but remember, we're a species of about 7+ billion, so 1% of that is still a lot of human beings. Reflectors obviously are deeply unusual. They're deeply unusual in that they don't have any definition, so there is a quality to their receptiveness to the nature of the world that is unique amongst the other types. And when you're looking at the not-self theme of the reflector, that theme is, well, it's quite something. It's disappointment. And when you think about the nature of the reflector, and that they are the most open of all of us and the most receptive to the frequency, the not-self theme, that what they take in through the homogenized experience of that is the deep disappointment. And that disappointment is about the lack of surprise, which is their signature. And basically what that means is that they're truly designed to be able to recognize movement and evolution. They're designed to recognize when, the status quo is broken. They're designed to be the ones who can notice when something new emerges on the plane. They're the ones that can find something new in everything every day. In other words, they can be like the laughing Buddha. They can have this extraordinary surprise delight in everything that they deal with because they see it with unusual eyes. It is a journey to move from the disappointment of the homogenized world where everything is predictable, where being able to say that one can only expect the worst is not pessimism but the truth, that one can only expect the same old, same old, same old, which is not pessimism but the truth, that for the reflector this can be a deeply depressing life. Not being able to see the surprise, always being disappointed in the lack of fertility, the sterility of the stasis of the frequency that they experience. See, we all have signature. We all have this duality to us. You know, it's the most remarkable thing about what we are as nine-centered beings is this accentuation of what it is to be a duality. We have this binary consciousness. We are dualistic. We are this and that. We are all of these things. We are always the this and that of our theme and our signature. It's not about you're here to get rid of your not-self theme. You cannot. You cannot. It's a mechanism. It is about the balance. It is about whether it is balanced entirely to the not-self theme, so that your whole life is dragged down with that, or if slowly the balance shifts and the whole power of that goes over to what is in fact your signature. And that the most important part of this whole process is your ability to be able to watch it. To watch it. You're here to watch it. You're here to experience it. You're here to be the passenger watching the movie. There is no other way to notice. Because it's not about the general thing, the big thing, the huge thing. It's all the little things that add up. You know, the magic that is there in the ninth gate. This taming power of the small, little, detail by detail by detail by detail until you reach the glory of it. Everything you witness is a resource for your awareness. You can witness this movement in your life every day, in every situation. You can measure your whole life between your not-self theme and your signature on a day-to-day basis. Watch it and see for yourself. Where are you? Are you on this side? Are you on that side? Are you only on one side in one situation and not in the others? What does that tell you? See, signature is really something to pay attention to. It's your own particular teacher, you know. You know these people that hire trainers? Yeah. This is your trainer. It really will train you. It will train you to watch. Because you see, the moment that you really are experimenting with your strategy and authority, you can begin to learn to watch. Watch where you are in that movement. Watch yourself in different situations. You know, if there is a situation that brings anger out of me, I'm not looking at the anger because I know it's just a chemistry. I'm looking at duration. I'm looking at how deep it tries to get into my system. You know, that's what I look at. It's just a measurement. You know, so I can reference it against the larger piece that is there in my process. It's an ongoing measurement. But it's something that gives your mind such a beautiful thing to watch. And I tell you, as you move along in that trajectory, as you move further and further and further towards what your signature is, You will take deep inside the pleasure in that, the beauty in that, because it's what we're here for. How productive the generator builders of the world would be if they were satisfied in what they did. You know, if you're a generator and you're using your energy for the wrong things, there's never going to be satisfaction. Never. Never. It's just an obvious. And it's really about seeing all of these things. It's not about believing me, about what I tell you about this type and this signature and this thing. It's so that you can have these reference points that you can empirically determine for yourself their validity and their value to you. You've got to see it yourself. You've got to live it yourself to understand. It doesn't matter what type you are, those two keynotes on either side, the not-self theme and the signature, you know them. You know them deeply. Now it's time to work with them. It's time to watch the movement. It's time to see your progression. It's a way in your own alone process, as you move towards your differentiation, that you can give yourself that little pat on the back that says, yes, you know, this feels good to me, you know. You've got to know it for yourself. It's the beauty. Signature is something that's very special. It's there. You know, it's there like the carrot that's held out in front of you that says, come on, you got to come this way. You have to move away from all of that not self. Move away from all of that old conditioning that dragged you down into your not self themes and kept you there. Come over here to the other side. Everyone can do it. Anyone can do it. It always just comes back to the same thing, whether or not it's your serendipity to have a commitment to following your strategy and authority. Nothing more, nothing less. Well, I hope that was informative for you. And to all of you, you take care. Thanks for participating. Bye for now.
Change is coming into play. Doors are closing, oh, every day. A signpost, a little of a plane. They're all men. Oh, they're going insane.